Today on the worldview, Gabon, India, China, Niger, things maybe you haven't heard from the other media, especially US media. We're going to cover here on the worldview. Buddy to the worldview. My name is Chris Greco. For the next 30 minutes, I'll be talking with you about different parts of the world and how they are interacting or reacting to different aspects of what's going on around the world with us, the US, with other countries, and how basically what's happening right now is that we are diversing. We are diversing into two different realms of life on the earth. And it's really an interesting situation right now because what's happening is that people are basically pawns in this whole idea about diversity. And it's interesting to see how what's happening is that we have on one side of the world, we have the United States. And I'm sorry, but at this point in time, the United States is basically by themselves. And the reason is because we're so internally involved in little things, and I'm sorry, but they are little things in comparison to the world as it is right now. We're talking about different aspects about celebrities, about celebrity aspects, about things that have to do with celebrities. And the world is kind of just moving on without us. And you can see it's happening. And especially with China. China right now is exerting a lot of influence in all different areas. And what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to talk about the world, right? So we need to talk about the world as it is. And I think what we're going to center on today is an area here. First of all, we're going to talk about India. And I think that what happens is that everybody has been kind of sitting back saying, "Well, India launched a ship, and they were able to go to the South Pole of the moon." This is not something that is non-trivial. This is something that is, I mean, it is very, very, very non-trivial. It is a very big event. I mean, when you think about it, how many ships has China launched to the moon? Think about that just for a second. In fact, look it up. You'll find out that basically that India is the first country to soft land in that part of the moon. That's a big deal, folks. That's a big deal. I mean, that means very specific instructions to the spacecraft over a long period and long distances, and that is a big deal. And it shows that India is trying to make themselves a superpower. And a lot of people are sitting back going, "No, they can't." And I'll tell you why. Why can't they? First of all, they have nuclear capability. They are a nuclear capable country. I mean, and so is Pakistan, of which India and Pakistan are kind of sworn enemies. But yet, India and Pakistan both belong, and I think this is very important to show this. So, where's Pakistan near, right? So, here's Pakistan right here. So, this thing comes up. So, this is Pakistan. This is India. What's Pakistan right next to? Oh, Afghanistan. I mean, this is really interesting situation when we come down to it. But Pakistan and India, neighbors, share a border, but the bottom line is that they're just not that friendly towards one another. But yet they both joined the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Both are members of an organization run by China. So what is it? why is China getting so involved in this stuff? And here's why. China is located here. Now, China basically is the keystone to Asia. China is the keystone to Asia. And it's a large, it's a relatively large area. It's got different borders for different countries. I mean, here, I mean, look at what it borders. I mean, you can say, well, it borders here. It borders Korea. Here it borders Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, all these areas, Burma, what used to be called Burma, now Myanmar. So all these areas, I mean, if they can put a foothold in this area, basically they can own this area, much like the United States had a foothold in NATO and the UN and G7, all these different areas that the U.S. was basically like the keystone, the anchor for all this. Well, they're not the anchor anymore. The U.S. is not the anchor anymore. Now they have the currency, and they may have the currency, but let me tell you, the Chinese are sitting back saying, well, why are you depending upon the U.S. currency? Why not depend upon the one, right? That's ours. We can do that. So all of a sudden now they have that. And what does that mean? Well, then it borders in this area, and now all of a sudden, bang, now you got Saudi Arabia. And guess what? Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Saudi Arabia is joining the SCO, and the UAE wants to join BRICS. That's BRICS was originally Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Those are the five nations, right? But they've started to build in other nations on this. What about the SCO? Well, the SCO is really big. It's doing all these things. So what is it about India, right? What is about India that's so interesting? Well, first of all, India has the fourth largest coal reserves in the world. In the world is here. So what are they doing right now with that coal? Well, one is they're using it for electricity. That's number one. Number two is they're using it to make steel. Very, very important. If they make steel and they become a steel making nation, they could do a lot of things with China. Also, another thing that's interesting is they also have oil reserves in India. What does China need? Oil. So all of a sudden, China is going to bring India in. I mean, they're part of BRICS anyways, but the SCO, they're also part of the SCO. So now the financial aspect is China, India, the two largest populations in the world. US is number three. And all of a sudden now, this right here is going to become an absolute keystone to the entire Asian area. Now, where's that leave Russia? Well, it leaves Russia in a situation where that they have one of the largest area, if not the largest, one of the largest land areas in the world. But it also puts them in a real bind because they border, um, Mongolia here, but they depend upon China as one of their most loyal allies. So there you have. I mean, this is India, and this is, I mean, they're doing a lot of things here, folks. And what's happening is that everyone's just kind of, they just had Modi the premiere at in the United States, and they were trying to, schmooze him and trying to get him to, hey, look what's going on. But India is very smart, very, very smart. They are straddling both sides of this area. They are aligned with the United States and the West on different things, and the SCO and BRICS on other things. So what's happening is that they are, by unaligning themselves, they're actually aligning themselves, and they're making a lot of friends in a lot of different places. Now, the interesting thing is, here's Sri Lanka right here, and Sri Lanka is dying on the vine. I mean, they're having a lot of issues with, um, I mean, they're a separate country, but basically what's happening is they are really suffering badly economically. Well, the Chinese has already said, and I've said this before, they actually took one of their ports and said, look, we have a lot of debt, but we're just going to take one of your ports. And that's what they did. So now China has a foothold in Sri Lanka. So, and India is just right here. That's what we're dealing with in Asia. Now, Asia is far away, far piece from us, so we kind of just say, "Oh well, they're far away from us. We don't have to worry about that." Asia's over there. We don't have to. I mean, but this is what we're talking about, and China will, in fact, take over this entire area within a matter of, gosh, probably within a matter of, because they already have Pakistan in the SCO, Afghanistan's in the SCO, so they're getting all the stands. I can't remember the different stands. It's Kazakhstan's in there, Tajikistan's in there. So there's a lot of different areas. All this Central Asia area also is part of the Chinese take. So I mean, this is what we're talking about, and I just don't understand. I mean, look, I'm not busting on the military at all, but you have these 2 and 3 star generals that are talking about the war in Ukraine. Great, great, good for you. I'm really happy about that. But why aren't you talking about this area? Why aren't you talking about the aligned nations within this area that could cause us an immense amount of issues when it comes to world economics, world politics, all these areas militarily? And finally, one of the generals finally said, "Oh, I think China is going to be a problem. We need to." So they had an exercise out here. They did some exercises, and hey, look, this is what we can do. Put some fleet out here. We can do a lot of things with to show China that we have the big stick and all that. And China kind of laughing, saying, "Fine, waste your fuel. We don't care because we have no intention on attacking the United States of America. We're just not going to do that. I mean, we're not going to take our ships and put it across this area right here, right? You got to go all the way across here just to get even to South America, right? I mean, that's a long way. It's a long way, and they're just not going to do that. So I mean, why should they, right? I mean, if they want to attack us, they got to come across this amount. Now, how much is that? Well, let's find out. I mean, let's go to the tools here and find out if we can. Let's do our ruler. And how many miles is that? Well, let's see. So we're talking here. Let's see. So we'll talk. I mean, we're talking 3, 5. I mean, we're talking 7,000 miles to get across the Pacific. I mean, that's a straight line, of course. Probably go over the poles would be better this way, I guess. But basically, we're talking 7,000 miles, 8,000 miles. You know, they're not going to take their navy and do that. No, they'd rather beat us economically because why muck around with that stuff? It makes no sense, right? You see, I may have screwed that up, but basically that's what we're talking about. So from here to here, and we'll go to tools, go to ruler. We'll go from here to here. So just about 7,000 miles, 6,500 miles, right? Just to hit the United States. Why? Ridiculous. It's a waste of fuel, waste of time. We'll just take what we need to take here, and then we're good to go. So that's what we're talking about. I think a lot of people don't realize the distances involved. I mean, and now something about climate change. Let's talk about climate change just for a second. When we talks about the world aspect. Um, Climate change, according to the climate change people, is changing the ice caps and all the other stuff that's going on there. What's happening is that Russia doesn't have any really good ports up in here. Well, if climate change continues, if it continues, if it continues, this is a big if, right? Uh, they could have ice-free ports up in here, up in the northern area. So now all of a sudden they can strike. Russia can start, putting stuff just over the poles, to different areas. I mean, including the United States. The United States is right there. So if I mean, well, Canada's right there, right? But they could hit Alaska. They don't even need to hit Alaska. They can. I mean, they can hit Alaska this way. But if they wanted to do Canada, right? That's 2,000 miles right across the poles there. Boom! You got yourself 2,500 miles. You can invade Canada. Into the United States. 3,000 miles. So interestingly enough, there's a lot of distances there that People just don't understand. Probably wouldn't unless they really, really came across that. So this is what we're talking about, and I think this is very, very interesting to keep in mind, right? Okay, so let's go to Gabon, right? Let's go to Gabon. Gabon is interesting. I mean, and I say that because basically Gabon is located on the on the west side, and it is there we go. And when we talk about different aspects about Gabon and about Gambia and the rest of those areas, it is interesting to note. Let's see up here, Western Sahara, Morocco, all these areas, right? Really cool stuff. So you have Mali, and we talked about Mali already. And we talked about how Mali is want the French to get out, you know, get out, and then bring it in Russia. It's interesting, but Niger, which is right next door, doing the same exact thing. So Mali and Niger both want the French out, and they want Russia to come in, which is interesting. They think that Russia is better than France at containing some of the disarray that's happening internally and whatever else is going on there. So when we talk about Gabon, we talk about basically the equator, and it kind of the equator goes like right along in here. So Gabon comes across there. Gabon has is interesting because they're going through a very, very bad internal situation right now. Something that may seem very familiar to you is that they recently had a presidential election, and the challenger is saying that the election was no good. Sound familiar, right? So here's what happens, um, and I've seen this time and time and time again in different countries, not just Africa, South America, is that when you start to lend doubt as to the veracity, the accuracy, the reputation of free elections, then people start to think, why bother having elections? We might as well just go with the dictator. Which interesting enough, Bongo, who's the guy who just won again, he won in 2009 and was courted like crazy by the United States. I mean, Hillary Clinton, got pictures with him. Barack and Michelle Obama had pictures with him. It was a big deal. The guy is a dictator. I mean, he in fact he's called a dictator in some of the CIA documents. So Gabon is having a really, really bad time right now, trying to figure out what to do. And in the meantime, the military in Gabon is kind of sitting back going, oh, this is interesting. Now, where was the guy born? The guy who won the election. Well, he was born in the Republic of the Congo. He was born in Brazzaville, in Congo. He wasn't born in Gabon. So, and then what happened was he went to Gabon was French colony, as Mali was, as Niger was, and Gabon. So he ends up getting into the politics aspect of Gabon. He's educated in music at the Sorbonne, which is in France, very big deal, very high reputation. Went to music at lower levels and went to law at Gabon at Sorbonne in France, but never got his law degree until he got an honorary law degree from China in 2022. Interesting, right? Interesting. So he's been leader of this thing. He's going for his third term, I think, in Gabon, and has won by 52%. And they're not very happy about that. At all. They're not very the not just the his opponents, but also some of the people that are there. So that's a real bad situation. But nice thing about Gabon is that Russia has their eye on Gabon, big time. So that's going to be an issue. In fact, what we'll do is let's go to Gabon. This is India here. I wanted to, again, this is fourth largest reserves in the world. Okay, they also have natural gas and lead, manganese, a lot of things, diamonds, a lot of things. India is a big deal. So what about Gabon? Well, Gabon, Ali Bongo, right? Since 2009, Vice President Raponda since January 2023. So this is what's going on here. Economy, right? $13,800 GDP per capita, which isn't bad. It's not bad. Look at this: petroleum extraction and refining. So they have petroleum. Gabon has petroleum. Who needs petroleum? Let's see who needs petroleum. Well, France needs petroleum, so but of course they're going to get thrown out of there. But hey, let's see where the exports go. Exports. Oh, China 63%. China 63% of exports. Exports crude petroleum. Remember? Yeah, crude petroleum. And this is a big deal in Gabon is petroleum. So, imports. France 22%, China 17%. Of course, China's probably saying, "Look, dump France, we'll give you the exports you need." United States is 6%. Imports, poultry, meats, packaged medicines. So all these things, when you talk about these areas, you talk about those. So that's, but they also do sugarcane, yams, groundnuts, game meat, rubber. Rubber, big deal. We need rubber. So all these things, and it says natural resource rich upper middle income. And I may have screwed up. I don't think India. Yeah, they do have petroleum. So they have petroleum. That's a big deal. But I don't think they have as much petroleum as Gabon does. Gabon, I mean, if you take a look at Gabon, well, no, that's India. So India, I wanted to look at energy because India produces, man, look at that, 3 million without electricity. That's a 1.4 billion, right? Population. Generates resources, 75.5% total installed capacity, 2020 estimates, fossil fuels, right? Now, let's talk about India one more time about nuclear aspects. Let's go back to them just real quickly. In 2019, according to the BBC, in 2019, basically, India stated that they were going to reevaluate their no first use of nuclear weapons, which is interesting because them in China were the only ones that had the no first use. Interesting, right? Because originally, the other ones during the Cold War, U.S., Soviet Union, France, and United Kingdom all reserved the right to use nuclear weapons first in severe conflict. And then there were two classical scenarios, and BBC is very good. I love BBC reporting; they do a great job on this, and they talk about the two different areas. So preemptive attack, or basically that they're losing on the battlefield. So all that. And then, India conducted nuclear tests in Pokhran in 1974. So they started in 1974, but they didn't really get a nuclear weapon until 1998, right? So all this area is what we're talking about. And I think, we hit Gabon. I wanted to hit Gabon because that is very, very important to understand exactly what's going on from the standpoint of where we are. So that's Gabon, and you can see it relationship to Africa in this area. So it's on the Atlantic edge, right? And look what it's near, which is interesting. In fact, if you take South America, you can fit that right in there. Um, look at the distance between there and South America, and I think that is South America more and more and more. I think is going to be, and this is Brazil here. So you go to Gabon, from Gabon to Brazil is 3,000 miles, right across the Atlantic. And you might say, well, so what? Well, if you take a look at the distance between Spain, let's say Portugal, and the United States, that's 3,587. That's almost 3,600 miles. So, from a distance perspective, it's actually closer to go from Africa to South America. And Brazil needs this stuff. They need a lot of things. I mean, they're trying to put themselves in a situation where they're the Amazon rainforest. They don't want to cut it down. They don't want to have a problem with it. They don't want to develop it. And as a result of that, they need more energy. They're going to need energy. So this is something that is very interesting from that perspective. So this is where we are, folks. We have India, which is a part of two major coalitions: BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and they're getting more countries in. SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which I'm just do you know that the SCO is actually sanctioned by the UN? I mean, they actually consider SCO to be like, yep, that's a good thing. The UN sanctions that. It's like, it's cool. That's part of their deal. Council of Foreign Relations, same thing. So I mean, you have in this area right here, you have a lot of power, both literally and figuratively. And Central Asia is starting to have to make a choice between going to the West or going to the East. I think they're going to go to the East. Saudi Arabia has already made that choice. They're going to the East. They're not going to the West. So Africa has to make that choice whether they're going to go north to Europe, or they're going to go to or they're going to go east. And I have a feeling, especially in this area right in here, that they're going to start going with Saudi Arabia and the rest of these areas. So this is a big, big, big deal, and it's something that we have to consider with everything that's going on. And if we don't, I think we're going to lose out. So we talked about Gabon, we talked about India. Um, Interestingly enough, I went to this. This is really good. Ourworldindata.org, and it's got some really great graphs in here. So if you take a look at the greenhouse gas emissions uh, that they have, I took the world, China. Okay, this is, and I do relative change, right? Percent change. I mean, 2,000, almost 3,000% change. The world has a 1,000% change. India, 2021 now, has over a 1,000% change, and the United States a 600% change. So, it used to be that we were like a number two area here, and we're still in that number two. China's 10, we're 5, but India's catching up. India's catching up very, very quickly because greenhouse gas emissions and CO2 gas emissions, both as a result of, and this is greenhouse gas, and this is, should have CO2 in here somewhere. Greenhouse gas per capita CO2 emissions. So let's go. I mean, this is really good, by the way. CO2 emissions. So we go to the CO2 emissions page, and this is what we have with CO2 emissions. So here is the world. Here, we're going to add a country. So we're going to add India. That's why I love this. This is just really great. We're going to add China, India, no India, India, and the United States. And this is what we have. So there's China here. Now look at India. India coming up. India's coming up. You know, it's 2.71 billion. We're at 5. The world is at 37 billion, of which China is at 10 billion. 10 billion tons. So I mean, we're there. Sorry. That's what we have, and you can even go back. That's why I love this thing. You can actually go back and see what it was like. See China and India, nothing, and then all of a sudden, boy, 1990s, boom, they just went nuts. So this is what is happening in the world. I mean, we're having a lot of issues from the standpoint of India, and India is coming on strong. That whole Asian area is coming on strong, and I think it's really, really important for us to consider that. Understand that India wants to be a superpower. And in the next 20 to 30 years, they could very well be a superpower. Nuclear power, they could have a steel manufacturing power. All these things are happening before our very eyes, and we do not seem to understand it. So, on that note, want your homework, go out and find out more about India. Go out and find out more about it. What is it that happens with that area now? Don't sit there and say, well, we have uh, Americans of Indian descent here. Yes, we do. And it's interesting how the Prime Minister of the UK, is undergoing a lot of pressure right now, and he is of Indian descent, about wanting to take immigrants at one point and put them down to Rwanda. So, I mean, this is a very interesting situation when we talk about this. And we'll talk about it more on the next Worldview. Until then, take care.